talked a little bit about why businesses go into a lean transformation and look at building their lean capability. But I think we need to actually take an opportunity to talk about the problem as well.
Definitely.
So one of the first things I think I see with what you need to achieve is actually getting your team or teams to understand just why on earth they're there. Why does the business exist? What problem is it solving for the customer? What purpose does it bring to the team? The key here is that, I think you'd agree businesses need to be profitable. We probably say that. There's a few other things. I don't know if you know of any other things that are important for a business, which is the right purpose for.
Well, you're dead right. It's generally, they're always basing it around profit, and profit's important, but it's more about having a sustainable business, a business where we're going to be able to see growth, a business where we're going to have secure jobs, a business that's going to be able to impact the market by being more innovative and research and develop. But at the end of all this, they need to understand the customer and their internal customers and external customers. They need to be challenged every day, and they need to be in a culture of improvement where their ideas really do make a difference and are a major focus of the business and how it operates, is the ideas of the people that do the work.
Yeah. So the employees need to, and the teams need to actually be part of the solution moving forward and be part of, the business moving forward and feel like they're actually contributing to something. I guess if that is done well, that also means that we fully understood what our customers need, internal and external customers. We can articulate that, and off the back of that, we can actually design our targets and our goals for the business moving forward 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it needs to be, with that customer focus in mind. The customer being internal as well also means, what teams need to do for each other, collaborate, things like that. So I guess if you have those targets worked out, if you have those goals worked out, you can also work on improving performance through the engagement of people. So one of the things is around visualizing performance. So we talked about it earlier where, you have all these KPIs. Hopefully they're well defined because you've talked to your customer and so you know what's important for them. But what are some of the things you've seen done to actually help employees or help teams understand the KPIs and work towards those targets?
I think that's a good point that you make. The first step is understanding the KPIs. So that's a process of understanding the inputs and outputs of a process, narrowed down to departments, or we can also take the business holistically, understanding what KPIs we should be measuring and why. And then the key to this is being able to visualize them, and understand them, and make sure everyone in the business can understand them. So visually, we manage them with visual management boards, and these can house a range of different metrics that we choose to measure, based all around the core KPIs that we've set. And then we want to be talking about them continually with the team. So we set up, in countless businesses, they use morning meetings every morning, or a group huddle around the board or information center. Larger businesses will do this broken up into more departments and things like that. However, they all come back together to a main visual management board where we can see where all the value runs through the business and all the metrics are tracked.
Yeah, cool. And this will be something that you probably got a bit to say on as well. I think about, I'm trying to actually measure performance and actually look at how we are performing, standards come into it quite a lot. If we have standards in the business, and we think about this from a process mapping point of view, one of the things I see is that actually documenting a standard is a significant jump in performance. So it's a really important part of performance. There's a really important thing that comes out of that as well. Once everybody is actually following somewhat of a standard, you have the opportunity to improve it. But when it's in chaos, or when it's not to standard, we might be achieving our result, but at what cost? And how inefficiently is it because everybody does it? So that kind of leads to continuous improvement. Continuous improvement being, mainly focused on the ideas that make things a little better every day that are generated by teams and by employees. There are some big leaps in improvement that strategically leaders of the business can make from the point of view of making a major policy change, maybe a major process change, or buying a large piece of capital equipment, a piece of software. Even having a consultant come in and map a value stream and show them where there are big improvements to be made. But if you want to actually make sustainable cultural change off a standard, then you really need to have the people who are doing the work engaged in generating the ideas once they understand what the problems are, and getting involved in the actual problem solving work as well, because they're far more engaged that way. So it's one thing for us to measure our performance and see where the waste is. It's a whole other thing to actually improve it, allowing people in the business to work together to improve it. And to that end, there's 8 wastes that you're trying to eliminate out of the business. The first one, unused creativity, is about getting everybody in the business involved in problem solving. The second one is transport. So that's, the examples I see is excessive transporting things back and forth, ordering the wrong components or inventory and then having to send it back, getting it sent to the wrong location, having it set down in the wrong place, moving it around with a forklift. But the other transport that I find excessive is email. Too much back and forth information in email when one stand-up meeting will actually suffice to communicate well within the team. Inventory though, you've seen some examples of inventory. Excessive inventory is bad. Tell us about that.
Yeah, excessive inventory. Inventory, a lot of the times we don't even know what the correct level of inventory is in a certain area. Inventory incurs excessive costs. Generally, a lot of money is tied up in inventory that we don't want tied up there. But I think the key is understanding why and where the inventory should be held. Is a key. To getting to chasing inventory out of the business.
It's quite amazing actually. I know in recent times, the subject of inventory and supply chains being interrupted for whatever reason is quite a hot topic, and then if you only have the minimum amount of inventory you need and you run sort of more of a just-in-time type of process, there's a concern there that you won't be able to meet demand if your inventory runs out. But the counter to that is that over the long term, it's far more costly to a business and to the customer to hold large amounts of inventory, because there's breakage, there's theft, there's all sorts of reasons why inventory doesn't last. It becomes obsolete, it gets weather damaged, you name it. Inventory is a real key indicator of more waste in a business, because where you see the inventory build up, there's a whole range of reasons why we're creating a whole lot of non-value added process in what we're doing. And to that end, inventory quite often creates excessive motion, and excessive motion is another waste. Waiting, so people waiting for decisions, particularly see this with transactional based processes like around email or sales or finance department waiting for information, that's a real killer, and it drains our productive time and it drains our value-added time. Over-processing a product or over-processing a service beyond what a customer actually needs is another waste. So giving them a gold plated service when they only really want, bronze level service. Overproduction, producing more than we need for when we need it, and that creates inventory as well. And then defects. So defects are usually just mistakes we make because there are so many other wastes happening, in my opinion. Those defects can be small, but generally they're getting passed on to the next stage of the process, or they're getting passed on to the customer.
What about culture?
Well, culture, if you actually think about it in terms of what we need to change in business through a lean transformation, culture is really important because you've got to provide people, I suppose, with the psychological safety to be able to feel that they can make a change now in business, and that the culture is going to change from one of people just doing what they're told to being more of a culture of self-directed teams who will conduct improvement on a daily basis, follow standards, look for opportunities to eliminate waste all the time. For teams to have that kind of confidence and that kind of culture, you need leaders who don't always have to have all the answers. And to that end, leaders need to follow standard routines and standard ways of thinking to actually promote that culture. So if we're going to have a culture of continuous improvement in our business, leaders need to be very much of the mindset of asking teams, what do you think? Rather than being the one who has to come up with the answers. Leaders are really there just to make sure we keep on track with the strategy and let teams come up with the improvements and the wins to actually eliminate the waste out of their processes and get better and better. That ultimately drives better customer value. A business with a very mature lean culture is one that is not relying on just one key person. And I know for growing businesses, quite often there's a very strong personality, usually the owner of the business, who has driven that business forward and has done a fantastic job of growing it and getting it to a certain size. But there is a point, and it's usually around anything from 20 people to 50 people, sometimes less depending on the business, where the owner or the general manager of the business needs to take that step back and let people do their job and conduct continuous improvement. So that kind of culture is super important if we're looking to build a lean and efficient business.